So this is a policy, an internal policy for a privacy breach procedure. You can see that some of the definitions that you have in relation to this policy. So the main thing is that this policy is used if there's been a breach concerning personal information, which is about identifiable individuals. So things like your customers, your applicants, volunteers, anything that may be related to individuals or that you are responsible for, that you've collected information. So privacy breach is any loss or unauthorized access or disclosure of personal information, either directly or indirectly caused by your company. And so you need to make sure that you capture accurately the nature of the breach and your response. Also, you need to know something about whether or not the breach of personal information is resulting in significant harm. By that, it means that there's potential for, humiliation, damage to reputation, and negative effects on the credit record, or identity theft, for example. So you're adopting this policy to ensure that there's a consistent approach. And so you need to have a methodology established in advance to deal with what will happen in the event of a breach. So the first thing you need to do is to contain the breach, right? So, and make a preliminary assessment. To do that, you'd need to, for example, recover the records, put a stop to the unauthorized practice, change the access controls, as well as designating an appropriate person within the organization to lead the initial investigation. If you have a privacy officer, you'll need to inform them and ensure that any evidence is collected, and then any information is not destroyed for the purposes of a later investigation. So the next thing you need to know is whether or not there has been significant harm. And the reason that's important is because if there is significant harm, there's a mandatory requirement for you to report that to the Privacy Commission. So you need to know if you need to know something about the type of information that's been compromised. And then, once you have made that assessment, so things like health information, social insurance numbers, those are all very sensitive data points. And so it's going to be more significant under those circumstances. So in order to assess whether or not there's been a real risk of significant harm, you need to ask yourself questions such as, how likely somebody is to be harmed by the breach, who actually accessed that information, how long that information has been exposed, if it was a malicious or negligent event that resulted in the unauthorized disclosure. So those are the questions you're going to be asking yourself. Then once you've made an assessment of the harm, you need to think about whether or not it's a systemic problem. This is something that happens quite often, happening often, or is it an isolated incident? Then you'll complete the privacy breach form, which is in the appendix. We'll go over that. If there is a real risk of significant harm, you're going to have to notify the individuals, right? So you'll make a determination as to notification of the individuals, and you'll have to confer with the Privacy Commission and other authorities listed below in order to determine what to do next. In terms of the content of that notification, so it's on a case-by-case basis, of course, but you need to say something about the description of the circumstances of the breach, what information was involved, the steps you've taken, and who to contact. You'll likely liaise with you'll have to actually liaise with the Privacy Commission and Data Protection Authorities in the case of a real risk of significant harm. And then there may be other entities that you would want to contact as well. Right? When you have had a data breach, you would want to make good record keeping or log of that breach. And that information will contain information relating to the date of the estimated date of the privacy breach, when it was discovered, who identified it, and the steps you took. Once you've completed that process, you're going to be in the phase of remediation and then figuring out how to prevent future breaches. Right? So you want to do a security audit and then review the policies and procedures that reflect the lessons learned. In Schedule A, this is a breach response form. So once you believe that there's been a breach, then you're going to use this form to capture all the relevant information, right? You'll tick the boxes and determine whether or not it's an unauthorized access, whether or not there's been accidental disclosure. You provide a detailed summary of the breach, for example, and who has been involved, their respective roles. After you've completed that, you'll keep that record until it's closed and have somebody sign off on the completion of the file. Okay, so that's your data breach response procedure.